Okay, for one, I know it's dark. I know the lighting is horrible. It's late. I'm in the dungeon. I was doing some work right before I go to bed. I don't get rage baited. I've been doing this for years. I'm nearly immune to rage bait, but this got me. By even the first frame, it starts to enthrall you, starts to capture you like a good book. I can't sit on this any longer. I just have to go through it. Charlie is our generation's MLK. All right, boy. All right, Kyle, tell us why.
Messages that makes him similar to MLK in that way. What change was he trying to enact?
So you can say that, like, so are you okay if can I guess like what you think, Charlie thinks? So you're surprised that I'm comparing to MLK because do you think that Charlie was driving races apart?
Oh no, you
A completely weird way to take this question. She asked a very clear question.
don't have to like assume what I'm thinking.
Okay, no. So no, we do believe that Charlie was trying to bring us together and he was trying to lift us towards Christ.
I don't have the face paint anymore for the Joker face paint that I did a while ago, but the Joker still is in me. I'm tweaking a little bit, Chad. I'm sorry. I am a little bit. Let's continue on before I comment because I got a lot to say.
But how do you feel about a whole bunch of these quotes that I honestly think divide us as people?
Do you guys feel like Charlie was like a hateful person?
Oh, no, not at all. No. And if I may interject on your last one there.
I just wanted to ask.
Yeah. I think a lot of his message, very similar to MLK, was civil discourse. Being able to talk with one side, whether or not they agreed or disagreed, it was getting those points across and seeing where each other was coming from.
He's quoted MLK.
Okay, let's just pause for a little bit, okay? This is starting to make a lot of sense. This is starting to make a whole lot of sense. It's so funny in a way that actually hurts. You know, you ever eat something that's so sweet it makes you sick? This is so funny it actually starts to hurt. MLK is not remembered for having discourse. MLK is not remembered for bringing us closer to Christ. Yes, he was a preacher, but none of those things have anything to do with with the true reason for why he's remembered as what he's remembered for today. He was a freedom fighter. He is somebody who put his life on the line for the freedom of millions of people in this country, hundreds of millions of people in this country who were being disenfranchised and discriminated against for the color of their skin in the country that they came from. And not only that, that's even whitewashed from what he really was, which was somebody who was fighting for labor rights and the rights of the worker and the rights of all people in this country. He was incredibly radical in his day, specifically because he wanted people to be equal. That is nothing compared to Charlie Kirk. But I promise you, there's more that I have to say on this. But I can't dump it all at the front, so we have to continue on a little bit. But just the complete misunderstanding of Martin Luther King's mission and why he's remembered. It kind of makes sense. Are they in Texas? They have to be in a red state for this to be going down, because their textbooks are the type of textbooks that tell you that slaves were actually really happy and they played patty cake with their slave masters after they got done with a happy day of picking cotton in the fields.
A ton of times, and the most frequently thing he's called is a racist. Why would a racist quote?
Why do you feel like people may?
Why would a racist quote MLK? I don't know. Why would the Nazis call themselves socialists? I'm curious how that works, isn't it? Why would the DPRK call themselves the Democratic People's Republic of Korea and not the totalitarian, mean, and stinky state of Korea?
Interpret anything he says as racist. Why do you think people may interpret him as a racist or as a racist?
Because he's white. And
number one, he's white. Of course, he just speaks, and everybody thinks he's fucking racist. Obviously, it's because he's white. Obviously, it's because he's white. That's the first reason, you see. It's literally this.
Well. Guess who just got kicked out of Starbucks for, you guessed it, being white?
Why would he do that? If Charlie Kirk didn't want to be seen as a stupid, stinky racist, maybe he should drop the whole Caucasoid Act and put some tan on that hide before he got cooked. Maybe I would have treated Charlie with more nicely if he was a little darker. If he was at any point in time of his life, if he was any shade darker than eggshell. Of course, he's just white. Shit, why didn't I think of that? I spent all this time doing research into things that he said and the ways that he believed. I spent all this time looking into the content of his character that I completely forgot about the color of his skin.
Number two, because he talks about divisive issues like race, which can divide people, but you.
So he's white and he talks about race. That's why he's racist. That's so crazy. Then whatever happens to all the white people who supported MLK? Because they were white and they also talked about race, but they weren't seen as racist. What happened?
You have to have an open mind.
It seems like some things aren't coming together here.
Divisive issues like race, which can divide people, but you have to have an open mind to see the truth of things.
Do you think he ever uses any incorrect statistics or says anything that might be inherently stereotypical
rarely,
that might,
also.
Come off as racist to some people?
Rarely you see. Yes, he 1350s every now and again, but I think every white boy deserves a little 1350, as a treat. Every white boy has 3 N-word drops on Xbox Live, okay, before we can start to get them.
The statistics can't be
Not statistics. I meant things that are like stereotypical. Like he would,
well, like what?
kind of, he would make generalizations about race, but
Like what?
things that weren't necessarily true. I'm just kind of asking, just to get your opinion.
Okay. I think stats are. It's impossible for stats to be racist because if you look at it.
Well, there are some statistics that aren't true that in the past I can't.
This is also a complete misunderstanding of how numbers work. Numbers don't lie, people do. And the way in which you can display and talk about numbers is 100% can lie. You can lie with numbers. Numbers don't lie, but you can lie with numbers. Words don't lie, but you can lie with words. This is like anybody who's ever done anything, who's ever thought more than 10 seconds about this issue can tell you. And this is also 100% proof that a lot of the people who listen to Charlie Kirk, I'm not even sure if these people were Charlie Kirk fans. Maybe they just have become vicariously mad because all the people around them are mad, and they saw some stuff on Facebook and on Instagram Reels that he was like a god among men. And maybe they were watching videos like this. Maybe this is it. Here, wait 1 second. I got this. Let me pull this up real quick because I saved this because it's just so crazy. Maybe they're watching reels like this on and TikToks like this is what made them think this way about Charlie. Just so you know, this original AI generated video is from a screenshot of a still image that was taken of him moments before he was gunned down, and they made this shitty. They made this shitty edit of him getting up and running to Jesus. Fuck. It doesn't stop becoming funny. It is crazy. So the whole 1350 thing, if I need to explain it to anybody, the idea that black people make up 13% of the population but commit 50% of the crime, a lot of conservatives like to post shit like that. It's not true. There was a time in in the 1900s, there was an FBI crime statistic that showed that of the known murder suspects, 50% were black in that one specific year that happened. But once again, back in the 90s, things were really bad. We've never had crime like it was in the 90s outside of the Prohibition era. So, and during slavery, when all that shit was not even considered a crime. But I digress. So you need to dig into statistics and studies to be able to make sure that you know what you're talking about. Even people on the left can fall victim to this a little bit. You need to understand that not only are black people more likely to be convicted of the same crime and sentenced to harsher penalties for the same crime as white people, but also it's not just white people who are the jurors who do that. Also, black people do it as well. It's systemic, and it's and racism is inside of all people, not just of a certain group or color. Prejudices can even be among themselves, which is also something that MLK talked about. I'm not sure if Charlie ever talked about how white people can eat their own so horribly, but we'll get into it.
I can't pull them up right now because obviously I'm recording.
We have to pull them up, but what topic was it?
I believe it was about the crime rate. It was an old statistic that he used that was
race-wise, or?
I believe so.
Okay, I'm from California. I'm from an hour outside of LA.
Okay.
I'm not this
we can tell.
guy that just grew up around white people, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Oh no, I don't have any opinions.
It's not a race thing. 13% of the population is black people.
Hi.
55% of murders. So I don't.
It's not true.
Okay, around 50, more than 30.
That is not around between 30 and 40 is not around 50. That's not. Are they at a college right now? Because boys should enroll in statistics immediately. Those are completely different numbers.
Percent from 13% of the population. So it's not a race thing, it's a heart and mind problem, regardless of what your race is, but around 50,
more than
50% from 13% of the population. So it's not a race thing, it's a heart and mind problem, regardless of what your race is, but unfortunately, people that grow
What do you mean, a heart and mind problem?
the people that murder people and commit crimes have a heart and mind problem.
Black people have a heart and mind problem? I'm just trying to figure out where we're correlating
I'm saying when over 70% of black homes in America are fatherless, you have a big problem. That's a big problem.
Okay, so once again, this is, you know what's really funny is he's like, earlier he was like the numbers don't lie, and then he lies with numbers right here. This is not true. 70, like here, let me get the quote again. 70% of black homes in America are fatherless. What the hell? I hadn't even heard this like fake statistic before. This is not true. Like 70% of black homes in America are fatherless. What does that even mean? Well, what I would guess is what he actually means by this is that 70% of black children in America are born to fathers isn't present is what I'm guessing is that he's saying. But this isn't true. This is a lie. Actually, the rate of not having two parents, or I guess fatherlessness, because usually this isn't categorized as having fathers and mothers. I know we like to think of it as the fathers are the ones that walk out, but a lot of homes are single fathers as well. And a lot of these studies that people cite are actually single parenthood and not single motherhood. The actual rate is much closer to 47% of black the homes don't have one parent involved. The 70% number actually comes from how many black children are born to unwed mothers, but that rate is actually rising among all people. Now, when it comes to people who are of lower socioeconomic status, it's way more likely for problems that we see in the country to actually be exemplified and amplified in those communities. And black people usually are poorer, have lower education, have lower social mobility. And so when problems hit the country, it usually hits black communities harder than it does many white communities. But just because you're born to an unwed mother does not mean that the father is not around, does not take care of their kids. And actually in those situations, the studies have shown that black fathers are actually more likely to be in their kids' life when it comes to not being wed than white fathers are. White fathers are actually way more likely to walk out and get milk and get cigs and not come back than black fathers are. Black fathers are actually more likely to read stories to their kids and push for them to go to college and get higher education and help them out when it comes to job training. I've seen a lot of people, very rarely does it happen in black families and black households, do kids get kicked out, but it seems like in a lot of places, white parents are chomping at the bit to kick their kid out of the home. It surprised me. I actually don't know any people in my life who've been kicked out of their homes while being ethnic, while being darkened. But I know white kids who've been absolutely kicked to the curb and basically left on the street by their parents, and then the parents have the audacity to come back and be like, why didn't you come talk to me? Bitch, you kicked me out of the house. I don't know, like a lot of white parents just don't, I feel like they really just don't give a shit about their kid. It's crazy. And a lot of that also comes down to the fact that in a lot of these places, white people are seen as having it all, especially if you're a white man. We've talked about this before. But if you're a guy and you're white and you're like, 20s, 30s, 40s, and you're not, and you don't have your stuff together, people look at you as basically lower than dirt. And a lot of studies have shown that white people have a lower opinion of poor white people than they do of poor brown people, specifically because poor white people are honestly seen as a weaker link than their distaste and distrust of poor brown people and just your average brown person. It's kind of wild how cannibalistic white people can be. It's also quite scary. I'm not saying that they're all like that, but like if we're gonna talk about statistics,
For 70% of black homes in America are fatherless, you have a big problem. That's a big problem. I think if you have fathers in the home, sons respect parents, because if you don't have a father, you don't respect authority. You can't respect anybody if you don't have a father figure. So it's not black people, it's a culture problem, and unfortunately it is in the black community, and it's not the only evil in the country. But unfortunately that gets blown up. It's like, oh, they're talking about black people, it's racist, when in reality it's just a statistic. When people say like, do you like black people? It's like,
Do you love black people? I don't care if you like black people. I want to know if you love black people.
I like good people. There's loser white people, there's loser Mexicans, there's loser black people. I'm not gonna say I like all black people because it's not true. I don't like all white people. I like good people. I'm against evil people. I don't hate evil people, but I want to correct them and be like Jesus and say, hey, you're in the wrong. I'm gonna say it in a loving way, but I'm not just gonna sit by and watch you do evil things. I'm gonna
Okay, so this is basically the end of the video here. I gotta talk about this, okay? Back to the beginning of the video with this guy, with this sign, because this is what got me. This is what triggered me to begin with. This is what began the tweak session that we're in that we are in now. Charlie Kirk is our generation's MLK. Insane, morbidly, chronically online thing to say by Kyle here, to have a sign and stand out there like that. In my generation, back in my day, we'd get the sticks out for this type of stuff. Not anymore, because a lot of conservatives are very happy being openly stupid. A lot of people would take this in many different ways, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I actually believe it. I'm gonna be honest with you, I actually believe it. I believe it, but not in the way that I think a lot of these that these kids want to make it out to be. I do actually think that Charlie Kirk was their generation's MLK, and by their generation I mean young white boys who have internet daddies who tell them what to believe, and while they ride around to school in their dad's F-150 that they hopefully want to lift one day to feel cool. That's the type of person who I absolutely believe Charlie Kirk was their MLK. You can just see how in the way like these people are reacting. They've genuinely gone insane. They've completely lost their minds after Charlie Kirk was shot, because he's like he means something to me, man. He really was like really important to these people. I mean, just look at this person and tell me that Charlie Kirk wasn't this woman's whole life.
You mother fucking animals! You liberal, progressive, deranged fucking animals!
Hi.
You are so hateful in your hearts to go out and shoot a young man who's never hurted anyone.
Oof, that hurted. Anybody out there been hurted by Charlie Kirk? Tell me how much you've been hurted by Charlie Kirk in the comments right now, okay? Just to prove her wrong. This woman has completely lost the plot. I mean, like, just listen to this.
His ideology, that's the reason why he deserves to die, you fucking animals!
Honestly, if she hasn't picked up voice acting, she honestly should. She would go crazy. She would absolutely go crazy at the voice acting awards. That's wild. Do I have a dead pixel? You see that dead pixel? Now you can't unsee it because I can't get rid of it. I think I have a dead pixel, but I can't do anything about it. I'm sorry. And something else. If I ever die, please don't act like that. You don't know me. I'm just a guy dancing on your TV screen every now and again, dancing on your monitor, dancing on your phone. You don't know me. Please don't act a fool like that. Do not be cringe, because what's worse than dying is having an audience that's super duper cringe. But let's bring it in a little bit. I do actually believe that Charlie Kirk was like young white boy MLK. He's not like MLK when it comes to his mission or his beliefs or his heart or his impact on the country, but he is like MLK in the sense that he's like a bizarro, backwards, inversed, evil MLK. He's like MLK if he was evil. And I mean, think about it. MLK, Martin Luther King Jr., worked tirelessly his entire career, specifically to be able to bring about the rights and liberties of people who were being disenfranchised in this country. Charlie Kirk worked his entire career to make the wealthy and the powerful groups in the majority of this country even more powerful than they already are. Martin Luther King worked tirelessly to make sure that no matter your legal status, the color of your skin, who you are, your gender, your race, nothing, that nothing would stand in your way, that prejudice and discrimination were completely destroyed in this country. Charlie Kirk called for slaughtering the most vulnerable among us, the migrants who crossed the border. MLK had to fight the powers that be in Congress, in the White House, in the Supreme Court, constantly at every step of the way. Charlie Kirk was the mouthpiece of the Republican Party and the sitting president who has been elevated to the God Emperor of the Republican Party. Okay, he was literally their friend. He literally called the administration my friends. Martin Luther King worked with socialists to understand and talk to people about how divisions of the working class, whether that be race or gender, sex, legal status, like country of origin, how you're born, how you are all used by the wealthy and the ruling class, the capitalists, to be able to hold us down and control the country for their own aims as we suffer and squabble among each other. Charlie Kirk got up on stage and screamed that he lives like a capitalist every single day. Martin Luther King Jr. was stalked and almost killed by the federal government. Charlie Kirk has flags being lowered for him, and the federal government is stalking news agencies to make sure that they don't speak poorly of him and the administration. Dude, MLK was sleeping on different couches and running from people trying to kill him. Charlie Kirk was a multi-millionaire. I mean, I can go on. I mean, even the biggest thing is that Martin Luther King worked tirelessly for the 1960 Civil Rights Act to enshrine legal protections from discrimination. Charlie Kirk cheered and asked for the Civil Rights Act to be revoked, saying that it was a mistake. He is white, evil MLK in every sense of the word. And I think that's honestly what makes him so interesting, because MLK was a man for people with everything to gain and nothing to lose. And Charlie Kirk was a man for people who have nothing to gain because they have it all and everything to lose. Because and everything to lose. And that thing that they have is their status. Okay? That's what it is. That's the really important thing, because whiteness for these guys, and you can very clearly see the type of people who are here. Whiteness is something very specific. It's very pure and it's very important, whether a lot of people try to believe that it is or not. Race plays a very important role in how you develop and bring yourself up. It affects you in very insidious ways. And with white people, whiteness is something very interesting, and it's baked in our society, especially white society. Whiteness is not something that describes itself by what it is. It describes itself by what it isn't. That's why we have terms like octoroon, describe how you're even just like you have a tinge of darkness somewhere in your bloodline long ago, but not long ago enough for us to call you full-blooded white. There's a reason for why the one drop rule came about. There's a reason for why, even if slave drivers assaulted their slaves, that the children that she bore were still considered slaves as well and not the fully white. There's a reason for why these types of things happen, and there's a reason for why it's very easy to not be white, but it's very hard to be white. And there's also a reason for why even after Charlie Kirk's death, even before Charlie Kirk's death, during his radicalization, the idea of the heritage American came about. I'm not sure if you've heard this, but the idea of a heritage American is somebody who's specifically Anglo-Saxon and who doesn't have any swarthy DNA like Italian or Polish in their blood, and who are from the first original pilgrims to come in. Now they want to make their own status. They're delineating white people into their own different types of castes. I'm not sure if you saw this, but this is a new thing that conservatives are doing now with this weird like white identity politics that Charlie Kirk was very much on, that he talked about constantly, about how white people were under attack, how Haitians are going to be your masters. This is the type of stuff that I would hear from white nationalists, and that's kind of what he had become. Now, he didn't want to say it specifically, but the country was made specifically for white men, and the status that comes with that is very important to many of these types of guys, even if they don't understand it. And when you fall into these like identitarian traps that these guys are, you start to take on those things, you start to take on those thoughts and opinions before you even understand it. The same way that a lot of working class people could understand that there's a fundamental difference between somebody who has more money than they know what to do with and how they live their life compared to how we live ours, and how not only are they disconnected from us, they're disconnected from their humanity. And there's different classes, and there's a big table and you're not, there's a big table and there's a big party and you're not invited if you don't have the money to be able to enter it. Charlie Kirk got that money. Charlie Kirk was tacitly invited by being white and not completely being a failure, and he dodged being a complete fail son by making enough money off of making the lives of other people completely worse that he was able to rub shoulders with the wealthy and the powerful and have his strings pulled. He was completely compromised. MLK was never compromised. The CIA and the FBI tried to kill him constantly because he wasn't compromised. Charlie Kirk never had to fear anything like that because he was completely compromised. The second you start saying that a federal government is your friends, you can never claim to be a person of the people ever in your entire life. Those people are not friends. They're people who hold power, and the people who hold power need to be afraid of the people who don't have that power in order not to abuse it. And Charlie Kirk has absolutely spoke to these types of guys that I can imagine. Like I see a lot of crucifixes out here. I already saw the color of the skin. Obviously, these guys are all Trump supporters. I know this is like the Texas flag. I'm not sure if they're in Texas. Maybe they're in Texas right now. But a lot of these types of guys fall into the trap by the wealthy rich people that Charlie served, and then later on became, and they fall victim to what MLK actually tried to stop them from falling into, which is this type of trap, they tried to stop them from falling into, which is getting these types of people to understand that race is an issue and race is important, but class and how we work and how we interact with each other is even more important. And that's the part that gets whitewashed and sanitized from MLK, which is the radicalization of him trying to overcome the powers that be that Charlie Kirk completely ingratiated himself with. These people are all more likely than not working class. Yeah, they probably come from some places that have more money than other people, but more likely than not, these guys are working class and don't have like stupid levels of money. These guys probably don't have Charlie Kirk levels of money. $12 million of the name, probably not. These guys probably aren't going to be inheriting a chicken dick empire or something when their dad dies. But what these guys do have, even though their trucks one day might be making noises that they can't afford, or are worried about where their next meal might come from, or where they're going to lay their head at night. Maybe they're worried about how they may not ever be able to buy a home because in Texas, I know that's getting horrible. Or they may be worrying about, even if they don't know it, how climate change could be affecting the way that they work, or how jobs are drying up, or how their tax or how more money's coming out of their taxes, but they're not getting anything from it. These guys are more likely than not working class, but falling victim to something that the wealthy elite have been doing to poor whites for a long time, which is controlling them, which is controlling them and puppeting them by the strings of the color of their skin, and helping them fall into these types of traps that keep them hooked to things like worrying. They keep them hooked to things like worrying about Charlie Kirk and not worrying about their actual pocketbook. Now, you guys have probably heard about Paul Bunyan. Paul Bunyan, that story about the guy with the raccoon hat who lived out in the woods and didn't need nobody to help. Very masculine story, very epic, very cool, very cute. American folktale that's still talked about to this day if you're like 5 or something. But Paul Bunyan, he was barely real. Paul Bunyan was a guy. He was just a guy that rich congressmen found they just found one day, and they helped push him to prominence and pushed his story, not because he was the good old frontiersman that everybody should look up to, but they pushed the story specifically so they could advertise their preferred way of having the economy run, which is no government handouts and no taxation, because you can do your own thing and you can be left alone. That was where libertarianism made its birth here in the country. country, because we used to care a lot more about making sure that people were taken care of, but that was killed by rich tycoons who cared more about stacking up zeros, who cared more about stacking up zeros than they cared about making sure that people were taken care of in this country, because that's how the rich operate. That's how they cared about their own class interests and not the interests of yours, because you're not in their class. You're nothing like them. So the story of Paul Bunyan got big, and Paul Bunyan helped push libertarianism, the type of libertarianism that that Charlie pushed, to help you think more about, to help orient poor whites to worry about things that weren't to give them a controlled opposition. Sorry, to give them the idea that they're fighting for. To give them the idea that they're fighting for a better future, or even to think that what they're fighting for is to stop people from getting something that they don't deserve. That's what was talked about in the book that I read, Dying of Whiteness. And obviously we can just talk about studies as well. Dying of Whiteness was an incredibly great book, and you guys should pick it up and read it as well. It's really good. It's by a white guy too. It's just like, for me, who's not white, it's like sitting in on conversations between white people, and I think it's very interesting. It's things that are killing white people constantly. I mean, these days, the white people not taking their vaccinations, that even these days, the vaccine skepticism has gotten so bad, pushed by Charlie Kirk as well, that people are not vaccinating their dogs because they're scared that their dogs are going to get autism. Dude, I'm just going to be honest with you. One, vaccines are not going to give your dogs autism. Two, why would you care if your dog is autistic? And three, as far as I'm concerned, all dogs are autistic. I'm just going to be real with you. I thought that shit was factory settings. The way I've raised so many dogs, from puppies from puppies to old mutts, and I gotta tell you now that I completely thought that that's how they came. That's default settings, but that's killing them, as well as things like hating Obamacare but loving the Affordable Care Act. These types of white people love these types of things that come about. They love things that they fought hard against because they're making their lives better. But rich people like Charlie Kirk keep convincing them that this is what's truly holding them back. And I saw something really interesting here. Steve Kornacki posted. This was a poll that was done by NBC News of Gen Z. So this is Gen Z split by how they voted or who they supported in the 2024 election, separated by gender. This is really interesting to me because it basically tells me everything I need to know about these types of guys, and everything. I don't even need to speak to the type of boy who would hold up the sign "Charlie is our generation's MLK" to know exactly that he falls into this category, hook, line, and sinker by the Koch brothers. So for women who voted for Harris, what is the question was important to personal definition of success. This is how you reach success, okay? And this is what rich people in a different class that MLK understood were against them, that Charlie Kirk understood could give him a paycheck until he became them, and he worked to uphold that status. Remember, this country was made for white landowning men, right? White rich men, not just all white men and not just all men. Absolutely not. These types of guys would not be included. They'd be seen as underclass, the Untermensch. But let's take a look at this. Women who voted for Harris, how they define personal success: fulfilling job career, 51%, having money to do things that I want, 46%. This kind of starts to make sense, I think, personally. Having emotional stability, 39%. You would think that not being a fucking insane person would be a great sign of success. I think personally. And then using talents and resources to help others, 37%. I would love this to be higher. I think in a society that's truly functioning, that's on its path to near perfection, would have this damn near 100%. If I'm going to be honest with you, that using talents and resources to help other people would be very high in the list of things that people pick. But I'll take 37%. I'd rather have a little over 1/3 of people thinking that helping other people is a successful way in which you live your life, which is very scripture wise, very biblical. If you didn't know, Jesus talked constantly about helping the least among us is how you get into the kingdom of heaven. And, you know, I guess we'll talk about the other half in here in a second. Financial independence, 32%. And, you know, all the other like normal monetary stuff here at the bottom. So very, very focused here at the top on like wellness and community wellness, like helping others, helping yourself and helping others, which I would imagine a very well-rounded human being would pick this type of stuff. And now let's go to men who voted for Trump. Bro, having children, number one. That's how you define your success above anything else. You could be a bum, you could be broke, you could beat women, you could be stupid as fuck, all right? You could have nothing, but as long as you nutted in a girl and she didn't get rid of it, fuck, dude, that's success. 34%, highest here. It's the highest in the room. And I would just want to take a step down. Okay, so that's the top. Let's take a look at the bottom. Let's look at Paul Allen's list. Having emotional stability, 9%. The very bottom. Only less than 10% of guys who voted for Trump looked at this and said, being emotionally stable, that's not success. Impregnating women, that's that good shit. I have never seen a disparity that explains everything more than I have seen right here. Dude, you need emotional stability to have children. You can't possibly imagine that you're going to be a successful father to children. Anything besides a selfish asshole who needs to be beaten with sticks anytime he walks out of his house. If you don't believe in being emotionally stable. And I've seen cope when it comes to this from conservatives who, I'm already emotionally stable, so I don't need to rate it high. You stupid bitch. Maybe they should put reading capabilities here as well, because your ass must be illiterate, because they didn't ask what do you have and don't have. They said, what do you consider success? I would imagine a lot of people who have children would consider having children a success, or how you would define a successful life. Women who voted for Harris have a much more balanced list. Now, you can say that you don't see it, but 6% said that having children, the lowest part here, 6%, and being married and having children being much lower on the list for women for how you value a successful life. You can say that, well, we should want to bump up those numbers, but can you fucking blame them when these are the guys that are trying to go for them when it comes to having children? Impregnating them is number one, and being emotionally fucking stable, being anything besides like a deranged psycho, is something that they value so poorly. Is like the type of man that they want to go for. Like, you absolutely do not want to be like, I'm no woman. I ain't got no yooty patootie. But I'm going to tell you now that I absolutely would not want to be with a guy who would say that knocking me up being most important and being emotionally stable being least important. That's like the reddest of flags that have ever existed. And for them, financial independence, fulfilling job and career, it starts to drop off like a rock. Being married is up there. Okay. Having money to do things that you want. And also way down here, using talents and resources to help other people, 17%, dude, 17%, almost less than half of these guys sit here and think that a successful life, and these people who would consider, a lot of these guys who would consider themselves Christians, Catholics, whatever acute denomination you want to consider yourself, these types of people who, This is how God considers you having a successful life. Okay, right? A lot of these people like love the get together and multiply verses from the Bible, but help other people, be stable, help people, making your family and community proud. This is low here. Like, I think these things should be a little higher as well. Now we can talk here about, well, maybe it's like for us, what is proud? Just because your community is proud of you doesn't mean that you didn't necessarily did a good thing. But okay, fine, whatever. We can be on our head here. But there's no ambiguity to using your talents and resources to help other people. What the fuck? So selfish, deranged asshole who only cares about knocking women up, right? And this is how they want you to think, because these types of things, right, down here are very important to having the type of community that these types of guys say that they want to bring about. And these are the types of things that MLK worked tirelessly his entire life to bring about in people. The black people's the years of trauma, like overcoming both obstacles external and internal of ourselves is very important, and just not caring about it at all is just mind-blowing to me. But it starts to make sense when they hold up signs like Charlie Kirk is our generation's MLK. I believe them. I do believe that they think that Charlie Kirk is their MLK, and I actually think so as well. But that's not a good thing. He shouldn't be your MLK. MLK should be your MLK. Okay, there are people out there who are working tirelessly. You probably don't know their names because they don't make their money being shitty fucking YouTubers. Okay, and I tell you this as somebody who makes money by being a shitty fucking YouTuber. There are people you don't know their names at all who are doing work like MLK out there on community levels, putting people who are on the street in homes, getting people who are doing drugs getting people who are doing drugs into rehabilitation, right? Getting guns off of the street, getting kids out of the school to prison pipeline. Those are the people who you should consider our generation's MLK, but you don't know about them because they're not our like Mind Führer's favorite podcaster. This is just sick. It's disgusting, but it shows us a lot about how far we've fallen and how far we need to come back from, because there in no way, shape or form should some small face loser, okay, because he talked about losers of all races. Charlie was a white loser, okay? I don't care how much money you make. You can make all the money in the world and still be a fucking loser. Look at Elon Musk, okay? Richest guy in the world and one of the biggest losers to ever exist. Yeah, Charlie's gone. But here's one thing. Getting shot does not make him MLK. Having talks does not make him MLK. If he lived his life differently, that would have made him MLK. MLK isn't remembered because he got shot. If MLK was alive, he'd be even more influential today. That's why he was killed. Charlie was killed because of his obsession with gun violence and the need for human sacrifices to be made to the altar of the gun to protect the Second Amendment, in his words, not mine. Because I would have wanted him not to be shot, because I wouldn't want crazy people to have guns personally. So yeah, I think he is their MLK in a bad way. Same way that segregationists back in the day and still today were their MLK. Just like how leaders of the American Nazi Party back in the day were their MLK. Many deaths are a statistic. One death is a tragedy. But no matter what, we are all going to die one day. But the important part to remember is that we are not remembered for how we die. We're remembered for how we lived. And once this all blows over, for everything you put out into the world, everything that you've done and not done is laid bare. That's how you're really going to be remembered. That's how the world is going to move on from you. And that's what people are going to carry in their hearts. Once the pain is gone, the reality sets in, and we start to understand that Charlie is not anywhere near MLK. He's the exact mirror opposite. And that's how he'll be remembered, to those who truly care.